Tov, everyone. It's something. It is not Monday, not Wednesday. It's Tuesday night. It is Tuesday night. It is 8 p.m. here on the east side of the United States, here in the diaspora. This is the Maimon Beit Knesset, and therefore it must be the Rabbis Discuss, whatever it is the rabbis decide that they want to discuss. And tonight, we are going to be discussing the origins of Hamas, since this is it's actually important. I want our viewers and those who kind of stumble onto our site to understand where this group actually came from. And before we get too far into this, let me bring in Rabbi Ancel. And Rabbi Ancel, you are on.
Shalom, everybody. Good evening and welcome.
Okay, so tonight we're going to explore Hamas and some connection to the Muslim Brotherhood. We are very fortunate, and Adrian, in the chat room, if you want to join in on the conversation, you're more than welcome. We are on Facebook Messenger, and you can just ring us in, and we'll bring you on. But we're very fortunate that Adrian has allowed us to use two of his articles that were published quite a while ago, talking about Hamas and the Muslim Brotherhood and their connections and their 12-point plan and stuff like that. Very interesting article, and I want everybody to understand where these people actually come from, what is their background, what are their aims, and so on and so forth. We are going to do this a little different tonight. Adrian it was a two-part article, and it started out with the Muslim Brotherhood and then went into Hamas. We're going to do it in reverse. We're going to do Hamas first, and then we'll go into the Muslim Brotherhood, and then the following week we will go into the San Remo Peace Conference and the UN's constant violation of international law based on the San Remo Conference from that point on. In the chat room, we have Marshall, we have Adrian, we have Shoshi, and we have Crystal. And so before we get started, any comments there, Rabbi Ancel?
Well, it would be interesting for people to know, because Hamas is not as old as we think, because first it was the Muslim Brotherhood, then the PLO, and Hamas came after them. So it would be good for the people in the chat room or whoever is listening to see the background and the history of Hamas.
Yeah. So to introduce Adrian, and again, Adrian is an old friend. I listened to his show every time it was on, and I miss it. After he went off the air, I really miss listening to him, especially those odd little songs that he would play on his break. which sounded like they were being played on a 78 record player. Adrian says that Hamas started in 1987. So, in the grand scheme of things, not that old.
Correct.
So, Adrian is a contributing editor to Family Security Matters at that time. He is a British-based writer and artist who has written for Western Resistance since its inception. He also writes for Sparrow News. He has previously contributed to various publications, including The Guardian and New Scientist, and is a former fellow of the Royal Anthropological Society. Now, that's the short version. Adrian's his resume is actually quite extensive, and if we went into his whole background, we would be here and we would take up the whole show. Just be assured that the man does know what he is talking about. So, as I said, we're going to start with his second article, which is titled, basically, Exclusive Hamas Gaza and the Muslim Brotherhood's Project. So Hamas was founded in 1987, as Adrian put in the chat room, during the first Intifada, by two leading Palestinian Muslim Brotherhood members, Sheikh Ahmed Yassin and Abdel Aziz al-Rantisi. I know I probably just massacred that name, but you know what? I don't care. Okay. Its name is an acronym for, and here we go again, Hadrakat al-Makawama al-Islamiyah, which is Arabic for Islamic Resistance Movement. Their famous charter was written in 1987, vowing to annihilate the nation of Israel and condemning any Israeli-Palestinian peace initiatives. Imagine that. Article 8 of the charter states Hamas's slogan, Allah is its goal, the Prophet its model, the Quran its constitution, jihad its path, and death for the case of Allah, its most sublime belief. So they're a death cult, basically. So as most of these terrorist organizations are, they're death cults. Initially, Hamas claimed to be involved with charities, as it was opposed to Yasser Arafat's PLO. It gained some support from Israel. Hamas received a boost of funds from 1988 onwards, when Gulf states withdrew their support for the secular group Fatah. The first Hamas suicide bombing took place on April 16, 1993, followed by numerous similar attacks targeting Israeli citizens. The Oslo Peace Accords of 1993 were shunned by Hamas. So this project, this Muslim Brotherhood project, as Adrian puts up, project in quotes. The project was written by Muslim Brotherhood leaders and dated December 1st, 1982. Like Hamas's charter, Hamas charter's ground plan for eventual annihilation of Israel. The project embodies a strategy intended to conquer the globe by creating an Islamic government on earth. The project was written shortly after the establishment of the Muslim Brotherhood's international wing on July 29, 1982. And I'm going to break here for just a moment because I want you to understand what's going on in the news today. We know that Brandeis University has banned Justice for Palestine from its campus. It receives no more no more funding or anything like that because of the protests and stuff. And one of the commentators I was listening to before said the Justice for Palestine movement is actually a Muslim Brotherhood front. So getting back to the article, each of the project's 12 sections or points of departure are accomplished by codicils entitled Elements, procedures, and suggested mission. In brief, the 12 sections are these. Number 1, to study the global terrain, examining forces which are for, against, or neutral to Islam, and establish a methodology of conquest. Number 2, to demonstrate proof of the seriousness of the cause to all and raising funds. Sounds like the Holy Land trials. Accommodate the global Islamic movement with flexibility at local level. Number 4, engage in national political processes while developing permanent institutions. Number 5, developing an Islamic state while using institutions to gain local power and influencing centers of power, both locally and worldwide, to the service of Islam. Number 6, to work collaboratively with Islamic groups. Number 7, to combine actions with nationalist and Islamic groups as long as Sharia terms are not breached without becoming allied to these groups. Number 8, to work with avoiding confrontations with secular national authorities lest these damage missionary work or the cause. Number 9, to support jihad wherever possible. 10, to use diverse surveillance and monitoring and establish a warning system for the Islamic movement. Number 11, to exploit the Palestinian cause as part of the global strategy and to foment enmity towards the Jews and Israel as a rallying point for Muslims. Sounds like they've fulfilled that in spades. Not just among the Muslims, among the world. Number 12, to elevate actions and to hone and critique policy. So what has happened, what is happening in Gaza, and remember that this was actually written back in 2012. And really very little has actually changed. So what has happening in Gaza recently is an enticement of several of the principles listed above. Hamas's existence fulfills the 11th point of departure. One of the suggested missions of the fourth point of departure was to establish a certain number of economic, social, health, care, and educational institutions using available means to serve the people within an Islamic framework. Hamas has established at least 86 of these charities in Gaza in the form of schools and nurseries, orphanages, and youth organizations. These charities promote Islamism, but give a public impression of philanthropy. Richard has joined us. Good to see you, Richard. What was that?
That's how they control the people.
Yeah. Okay, Adrian goes on, the 7th point of departure, qualified as battling one evil with a lesser evil, as already has been used in Britain as a matter of policy by the Stop the War Coalition, which combines the Muslim Brotherhood founded organizations and Muslim Council of Britain, the MCB, and the Muslim Association of Britain, the MAB, with the unelected dregs of British leftism, the Socialist Workers' Party, the SWP. The SWP used to campaign about gay rights, which are anathema to MCB and MAB, but the three groups made little mention of this hypocrisy within their cozy union. Hatred of America and Israel, and getting one member, particularly George Galloway, into Parliament was more important. Jailed Islamist Abu Hamza said at one Stop the War rally, "We say to anyone who hates America and wants to throw the Jews out of Palestine, Ahlan wa Shayin, welcome." Okay, I know I'm massacring these words, but again, I don't care. Okay, the prophet teaches that we could ally ourselves even with the atheist if it helps us destroy the enemy. So we can throw all our principles, according to Islam, they can throw all their principles out the window as long as the ends justifies the means. Britain is currently the target of Al-Qaeda, according to Ayman al-Zawahiri, Al-Qaeda's deputy leader. There has been widespread Muslim contempt for Britain due to the Iraq conflict. Despite this, Hamas's actions incurring favor both with Britain and its state-funded broadcaster, the BBC, during Alan Johnson's kidnapping, exemplifies the seventh point of the departure. Interesting that this comes up because I was actually reading about Hamas's their part in this Alan Johnson's kidnapping and whether they were actually key to that or not. So the BBC's reporting during Hamas's coup of June 13th through the 15th, in which 100 Palestinians, including Fatah members, were slaughtered, rewarded the terror group by maintaining that its enemy was corrupt. It has long been known that Fatah and PLO leaders have siphoned money earmarked for Palestinian civilians into their personal bank accounts. However, it was the first time that the BBC primetime TV news mentioned Fatah corruption during a Palestinian crisis in which Fatah members were killed. Interesting. Though Hamas's charter precludes the possibility of Israeli peace negotiations, it nonetheless has superficially made deals that appear conciliatory. One of the signatories of the 2006 National Reconciliation Document was Abdel Khalek al-Natshem of Hamas. This document, also known as the Prisoners' Document, would have accepted a two-state solution conditional upon Israel retreating to its pre-67 borders. There are no such thing as a pre-67 borders. It's a lie. The green line is a lie. They use it constantly. The green line is simply the point where hostilities stopped. There's no border, no agreement, no nothing. It's just where the hostilities stopped. So you should know that. The green line is a fraud. Okay, retreating to its pre-67 borders, though it did not specifically condone Israel's right to exist. After Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh was elected Palestinian Prime Minister in January last year, again, remember this is going back to 2012, relations with Fatah worsened to the point of bloody violence. Anybody from, that remembers that. Actually, even before that. Fatah leader and president of the Palestinian Authority, Mahmoud Abbas, met with Ismail Haniyeh and also Khaled Mashal Hamas leader. The points of the deal were reworkings of terms set by the National Reconciliation Document of 2006. It would have allowed for Fatah Hamas power sharing in a Palestinian government. The Mecca Accord was treated with mistrust by the U.S. and Israel. Yeah, no kidding. Mahmoud Abbas dissolved the unity government on June 14th, while Hamas activists were gaining control of the Gaza Strip through force. From its base in Damascus, Hamas Supreme Leader Khalid Mashal sent a message to the Egyptian-based General Guide of the Muslim Brotherhood, Mahdi Akef. The message blamed Fatah for the Gaza push coup by not following political protocol and not engaging in dialogue with Hamas. Mashal also blamed the Zionists for the situation, but claimed that Hamas was not its enemy. The emphasis on appearing to follow diplomatic principles coincided with the project's fourth point of departure. While the Gaza Strip coup took place in June, Al-Qaeda's deputy leader, Zawahiri, himself a former member of the Muslim Brotherhood, urged Muslims to show solidarity with Hamas. This is in line with the ninth point of departure listed in the projects to construct a permanent force of Islamic Dawah and support movements engaged in jihad across the Muslim world to varying degrees and insofar as possible. One of the ninth point's procedures is listed thus: to form an autonomous security force to protect the Dawah missionary activity of its disciples locally and worldwide. In 2005, Hamas set up its anti-corruption unit, oh boy, to enforce Islamic principles. Such principles included at least one honor killing. On Monday, July 9th, Fatah president of the Palestinian Authority, Mahmoud Abbas, claimed on Italian television that Hamas had allowed Al-Qaeda to infiltrate the Gaza Strip. If this is true, it would certainly comply with the project's ninth point of departure. Ismaili Haniyeh responded to comments about the need for international peacekeeping forces with the comment, "We consider any international presence in Gaza a type of external aggression against the Palestinian people and the Palestinian issue and unwanted interference in internal Palestinian affairs." Here, Hamas can always fall back upon the 11th point of the departure, exploiting the Palestinian cause and to create jihad cells in Palestine and support them in order that they cover all of occupied Palestine. Hamas's ambivalent relationship with Al-Qaeda inspired Army of Islam, which kidnapped Alan Johnson, again reflects this suggested mission of the ninth point of departure. Romano Prodi, Italy's premier, on a visit to Sderot in southern Israel, was told by an Israeli intelligence officer that Hamas has its own army in the Gaza Strip. About 7,000 to 10,000 belong to this army, which controls the populace. About 30 tons of explosives have been smuggled into Gaza from Egypt. Okay, this is, again, remember, this is 2012, and Egypt has effectively closed that border for a while now. So, with control over territory for the first time in history, the Muslim Brotherhood, in the form of Hamas, was quick to present itself to the world as a viable political force. The politicking over the freeing of Alan Johnson, who was I believe was a BBC reporter. Adrian, you can correct me if I'm wrong, please. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Alan Johnson successfully softened the stances of politicians in Britain and European Parliament to add to Hamas's public presentation of itself as the human face of Islamism. Fighters for the terror group freed a lioness that had been kidnapped by a local clan and returned her to the Gaza Zoo. The lioness was reunited with her brother, who had resisted the kidnapping attempt 2 years previously when both were cubs. Okay, so yeah, Adrian says that, yes, he was a BBC reporter, and that I was right. Imagine that. It had to happen. It had to happen. You know what they say. Even the broken clock is right twice a day. So, Abdul Khalid Leila was one of those who assisted Sheikh Yassin and Abdel Aziz al-Rantisai to found Hamas in 1987. After the June coup in the Gaza Strip, Leila said, "We want to bring peace and justice to the entire world." Oh boy. And he said it with a straight face, claiming that the West is falling apart and Arab societies were rife with corruption. We have the proper medicine against it all, Islam. We want to spread this medicine throughout the world, the whole world, or spread this disease throughout the whole world. The project's 10th point of departure is described in its elements as spreading Islamic policy so that it is largely and effectively covered by the media, and it is suggested mission to warn Muslims of the dangers of threats threaten them and the international conspiracies directed at them. The issue of the Danish cartoons reflected the 10th point of departure. After the cartoons of Muhammad were published in September 2005 by the Jyllands Posten newspaper, a Palestinian cleric in Copenhagen, Abdul Laban, made a tour of the Middle East to whip up the controversy. Laban denied intelligence claims that the Muslim Brotherhood were involved in fomenting protests against the cartoons. Despite Laban's denials, Oliver Gitta claimed that Abu Laban had visited Qatar in his campaign tour. Here he briefed Sheikh Yusuf al-Qaradawi, spiritual leader of the Muslim Brotherhood. On February 4th, 2006, Laban mendaciously told IslamOnline.net that Danes were preparing to burn Qurans. IslamOnline.net has as its spiritual advisor Sheikh Qaradawi, who uses his Al Jazeera TV show to condemn the cartoons. In the U.S., the Muslim Brotherhood founded a group, the Muslim American Society, campaigned for action against countries that reproduce the cartoons. At the start of February 2005, members of the Palestinian, I remember this was huge in the cartooning world. I mean, back then, 2005, we were still doing the Four Corners cartoon strip. We still had a lot of friends in the industry, and that was the talk. That was the whole talk of the industry, was this the cartoons and the protest and the subsequent actions afterwards. At the start, February 2005, members of Palestinian Islamic Jihad were armed, and the armed wing of Fatah closed down the EU's office in Gaza. According to the BBC World Service, on February 2nd, the 40 PIJ members were supported by Hamas members who outnumbered the Fatah activists. Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Egyptian Muslim Brotherhood all demanded apologies for the cartoons. I got your apology. I'm sitting on it. The Muslim Brotherhood has technically supported violence and jihad while publicly maintaining that it is democratic and moderate. In March 2007, the Nixon Center published a report entitled The Moderate Muslim Brotherhood, which was written by Robert S. Lakin and Stephen Brooke. The authors consulted with Muslim Brotherhood members in Egypt, France, Jordan, where the group is legal and called the Islamic Action Front, and observed that for the U.S., cooperation is specified in specific areas of mutual interest, such as opposition to Al-Qaeda. Yeah, right. And in encouragement of democracy. Oh, Lord, seriously. And they said it with a straight face. Encouragement of democracy and resistance to expanding Iranian influence could well be feasible. The authors concluded that a conversation with the Muslim Brotherhood makes strong strategic sense. Oh, boy. Hamas is only briefly mentioned in the document, and Lakin and Brooke quote the general guide for the Egyptian Muslim Brotherhood, Mahdi Akef, who claims that there is no conflict between the Brotherhood and Jews. Only Zionists. Oh, that's the big, isn't that it? It always comes down to that. Oh, we're not against the Jews. We're only against Zionists. But if you read the Torah, every Jew is a Zionist. Okay. Only Zionists who are not Jews. At no stage of the stage do these experts mention the project. For the project's 11th point of departure, suggested mission includes to nourish a sentiment of rancor and respect to the Jews, and the refuse all coexistence. So much for your bumper stickers out there, people. If any policymakers are foolish enough to swallow, and I'm sorry, Adrian, you and I, and most of the thinking population of the world know that, there are no thinking members in Congress. Any policymakers foolish enough to swallow the advertisements given by Lakin and Brooke, and there are members of U.S. Congress who do believe in engaging with the Muslim Brotherhood, they should first examine the precepts of the project, and most importantly, they should examine the current actions of Hamas in Gaza. And that is the end of the article. Again, we're doing these in reverse order because I wanted people to have a better understanding of Hamas before we actually get into the Muslim Brotherhood. Adrian says that moderate Muslim Brotherhood documents led to the Obama. I was just wondering about that. The moderate Muslim Brotherhood document led to the Obama administration encouraging the Arab Spring and led to the rise of Islamic State. And as we know that under Obama, he pretty much purged the military, put a lot of Muslims in charge of a lot of very sensitive positions. People that we know, like Gadi Edelman. Gadi, if you're watching, stay safe. Always keep an eye on your six. Have somebody watching your six. Gadi is in Israel right now. But people like Gadi, who has experience in this field, were forbidden by the Obama administration to actually continue doing what they were doing and speaking with the FBI, speaking with the National Security Agency and stuff.
Part of the Brotherhood.
Yeah, it basically said that he said that no, only Muslims could teach this. I mean, talk about the fox guarding the hen house. It was crazy. So Gotti was not allowed to speak or lecture at any of these government entities anymore because they were basically filled with Muslims at this point. So there you have it. Let's go ahead and let's take our break now, and then we come back. We'll talk more about this, and then we'll next week we're going to do part 1 of the articles, the one that talks more about the Muslim Brotherhood and their connections and stuff. I want you to have a good educational background so that when this BS comes popping out of people's mouths, that you have the ammunition to say, wait a minute, back in 2005, this happened and so on and so forth.
The biggest problem is that they keep on talking about Palestine. Where is Palestine? Palestinian people. Where's Palestine?
Yeah, well, we covered that last week, right?
Yeah.
We showed that there is no such thing as Palestine. So there is no such thing as the Palestinian people. It was a made-up term. So, okay, so we are going... I'm going to turn you down here for a moment, Ancel.
Okay.
Okay, so we are going to take our break right now. And then when we come back, we'll get into this a little more. Again, Adrian, if you're up to it, call in. If not, that's fine too. We would love to have you here, but situations being as they are, I understand if you're not up to it. So anyway, we'll take our break and we will be back in 6.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Delicious things to eat.
The popcorn can't be beat. The sparkling drinks are just dandy. The chocolate bars and the candy. So let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
It's intermission time, folks, so hurry, hurry, hurry. Step right over to our refreshment center for the most extravagant array of refreshment goodies ever assembled under one roof. Enjoy breathtaking, mouth-watering goodies, everything from a snack to a delicious full meal. At our refreshment center, you'll find a large variety of goodies to satisfy your hunger, your thirst, or your sweet tooth. So hurry, hurry, hurry. Visit our refreshment center now. The show starts in 5 minutes. The show starts in 4 minutes. show starts in 3 minutes. The show starts in 2 minutes. The show starts in 1 minute. And now, on with the show.
And we are back, just as promised. And again, I want to thank Adrian Morgan for allowing us to use his articles. Graciously allowed us to use his articles, be able to read them on the air tonight. Let's bring Rabbi Ancel back in again. Adrian, really miss your shows, really do.
But you know what the sad part about it is? All of the United States, Canada, and most of these countries, they haven't got a clue about their background, who they are, what their charter is all about.
Well, yeah,
But if
exactly.
you look at the other way, they're Muslim, the Muslim Brotherhood. They believe in the Quran. Muhammad, Allah, they said the land belongs to Israel. They're illiterate. They can't even read the Quran, or they don't care about the Quran. They're just sick people. You know, they go against their own prophet.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how can they justify this, you know?
Yeah, again, you know, we talked about this before. There's the what they call him the Imam of Peace.
But
In
the
I
imams
believe
and
it's
the mullahs,
well, I think
they're
he's
the face of ISIS.
well. I mean, you know, this guy's in Australia. He is an imam, and he's constantly calling these terrorists out as frauds and liars.
Yeah.
Yeah, he says the Quran says that Israel belongs to the Jews.
Look at the head of Hamas, his son, the way he spoke against Hamas.
Yeah.
You understand? But there's, it's just they're just sick people who they'll never succeed to take out Israel.
Yeah. Adrian says that. Oh, let's see. I'm gonna back up here. It's okay. They set up FOSIS, Federation of Students of Islamic Societies, in 1967. This goes back quite a ways.
Yep.
And then, and when Obama first gave his first speech abroad, Jimmy Carter and Madi Bray helped set it up. Bray was another Muslim Brotherhood linked guy. Adrian goes on to say when he was in college in London in 1976, we must be pretty close to the same age, Adrian. Anyway, when he went to college in London in 1976, Islamic student societies were established, all anti-Israel, all pro-Palestinian. Yeah. Well, like I said, today we heard that Brandeis is banned, Justice for Palestine, from the campus. They've been defunded, and this is the first one. I mean, Brandeis is an Ivy League college. It's the first one. Now we'll see if the rest of them actually start following Brandeis's lead on this. Hopefully they will, and start banning these groups, which again they were established by the Muslim Brotherhood. They are Muslim Brotherhood front groups, and hopefully they'll start banning these from the major colleges and stuff. But
Thanks to Obama.
I don't hold up a lot of hope, but I got some. So in the news, we have the Hezbollah getting in on things today, firing 20 rockets from Lebanon into Israel. Let's see. So from Arut Sheva, Israel entered its 5th week of the war, which has been dubbed Swords of Iron. Let's hope they keep it that way. On Saturday, the war was sparked on October 7th when the Hamas terrorist organization launched a surprise attack by land, air, and sea. After a heavy barrage of several thousand rockets, Hamas terrorists invaded the Israeli territory, infiltrating military bases and civilian population centers, where they massacred the inhabitants and took others captive. As of Sunday, November 5th, over 1,400 Israelis have been killed and about 4,000 were injured, and at least 210 Israelis, including civilians, are in Hamas captivity. IDF troops were continuing to eliminate terrorists in close-quarter combat. Again, over the weekend, or just before the weekend, before Shabbat, the IDF had effectively cut Gaza in half. They had driven from Israel over to the sea along the southern let's call it the safe zone, the river, the Wadi that they were telling everybody to evacuate past that and it would be safe. Israel had driven to the sea and had effectively cut the north and the south in half, or from each other, and now they're driving north while those entities in the north are driving to the south. Hamas is basically they're in a vice now, with nowhere to go.
Way, the way Israel still tells them to go away before we start bombing.
Yeah. So anyway, just finishing up the article, IDF troops continuing to eliminate terrorists in close quarter combat and direct aircraft to strike Hamas terrorist infrastructure, weapons depots, observation posts, and command and control centers in the Gaza Strip. Overnight, IDF troops directed aircraft to strike Hamas military compound containing command and control centers, observation posts, and additional terrorist infrastructure. Okay, so we also had a briefing by the IDF the other day showing Hamas actually using the hospital as a staging ground, firing on IDF troops from the hospital, going in and out of the hospital through tunnels and stuff like that. Again, hiding behind the civilian population, which is a war crime. In fact, just about everything that Hamas has done has been in violation of international law, and nobody seems to want to talk about it, especially the UN, who in their infinite wisdom decided that after this massacre they were going to go after Israel for retaliating. They really, you know, they should line up about 20 bulldozers right there. I can't even remember what there's two roads that kind of flank the UN building. Just line it up with bulldozers and just drive south. Drive south and just obliterate that place. It just does. It serves absolutely no purpose whatsoever anymore.
It never did.
It's been taken over by Nazis and fascists, and they have no legitimacy whatsoever. And we will be
That's why I called them United Nazis. UN.
We will be getting more into that, not next week, but the following week, when we start talking about the San Remo Peace Conference and how the UN has violated international law time and again, going after Israel, based on what was established at the San Remo Conference. It's actually quite interesting. We'll go into a little bit of the history prior to the San Remo Conference, and then what actually came out of the San Remo Conference, and the rules of engagement that Hamas seems to want to violate constantly. Okay. So let's see. Okay, so we have the Minister Dermer to Sky News, Palestinians will govern Gaza, but it's not going to be Hamas. So this is Strategic Affairs Minister blast anti-Israel and demonstrators in London. When they say free Palestine from the river to the sea, that's a call for genocide. It absolutely is. And it should not be tolerated. But as far as, you know, who's going to govern Gaza, I'd say right now that's kind of up in the air. You know, I mean, they don't seem to be able to govern themselves. You know, so Adrian, what was the name of the military person in London that was basically hacked to pieces on that bridge? Was it Drummers something or Gunners something or something like that? I can't remember his name. I should have looked it up before the show, but I can't remember. Okay, let's okay. So anyway, going back to this again, this article about who will govern Gaza after the war. The interviewer pressed Demur on the civilian death toll in Gaza. Again, this is where Sky News is getting to be just as bad as the BBC anymore. I swear. You know, they always want to talk. They first want to talk about, you know, all the deaths in Gaza. Well, hey, guess what? You know, of all the rockets that are fired in Gaza, and you remember from last week's show that we actually showed the numbers that 16 to 20% of those rockets never leave Gaza. They actually fall in Gaza, and we had a direct example of that with the with what they said was the hospital bombing by Israel, which turned out to be an errant rocket from Islamic Jihad, which didn't even hit the hospital. It hit a parking lot next to it, and the hundreds and the 600 people that were supposedly killed by Hamas's release that the Western press seemed to jump all over turned out to be 50 people that were in the vicinity of the parking lot. But they're still promoting that. I mean, we have Talibi running her mouth and still insisting that Israel had bombed the hospital when it's been proven by everybody has admitted it now that it was actually Islamic Jihad. Islamic Jihad actually admitted it, for crying out loud.
It's because people have been indoctrinated for so long. They starting to believe the lie. You know, you tell enough lies, people will just start to believe that it's the truth.
Yeah. So anyway, so she's pressing demur on the civilian death in Gaza, noting that Hamas claimed 10,000 have died. Demur said he could not confirm the numbers and could not provide an assessment of his own, but noted that Israel has killed 3,000 Hamas terrorists since the start of the war. Okay, Ridge then asked Demur if he is comfortable with the ratio of terrorists to civilians dying. To which the minister replied, first of all, I don't even know what that means. I don't know what that means with a ratio. 8 million Germans died in World War II, and 400,000 Americans did.
War is war.
I don't know how many Brits did, but that means that 20 times as many Germans died as Americans. Does this mean that somehow the Nazis were right and the Americans were wrong? I mean, finally, we're getting some people who are actually fighting back, against these lies. It's ridiculous. Sky News. I mean, we've had several incidents where Sky News is actually, when talking to a former Israeli prime minister or prime minister or whatever, somebody in the government, and the first thing that they talk about is the poor civilian deaths in Gaza.
War is war.
Yeah, I mean,
and
even in
all over the world,
even in Great Britain today, I heard. I think it was a member of Parliament was talking, and he was talking about the deaths. And the first one, he's talking about actions, anti-Semitic actions and stuff, and saying that, and he brings in the Muslims, talking about these anti-Muslim attacks and stuff. I'm going, okay, where are these anti-Muslim attacks happening? I'm not hearing anything about them. But he's saying, he goes right first to say, well, we're giving more police protection to Muslim communities and mosques and stuff like that. And by the way, we're sending some extra security to synagogues and stuff. It's like, what the heck, Britain? Adrian, I know you're probably just as upset about this stuff as we are, but I mean, seriously, come on. I mean, here in America, I mean, we know, Talibi and whatever her name is, Omar or whatever.
AOC.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to run their mouth, and nobody takes them seriously anyway. So.
But you know what the sad part about it is? We have our own people talking against us. Bernie Sanders.
Yeah.
He should burn in hell.
Yeah, it really is.
Sorry.
Yeah, so it's yeah, I mean it's just I don't get it. I don't get it. They've been so indoctrinated by the leftists. Well, I mean even Israeli Israeli politics is rife with leftists. And in fact, that's the major problem with Israel is their government and their leftist leanings within the government. That just keeps getting them into more and more trouble all the time.
It's kind of sad.
Yeah, it's more than kind of sad. Right? It really is. It's trying to catch up to the. So we have the defense minister saying no humanitarian pause without return of the hostages. Okay, finally, good. I say the same thing. You want there's constant calls for ceasefires and humanitarian
That would be the biggest
pauses
mistake.
and stuff like that. It's so stupid. I mean, Israel knows that all it is an excuse for Hamas to rearm. So excuse me. Not polite to drink on camera, so I will lean over so I don't.
Here's the chance for them to finish. If they don't
Yeah.
finish now, they never will.
Well, that's what the defense minister said. It's too late to stop. See, defense minister, again, all these stories are coming from Eretz Sheva, which it's kind of my go-to. So, defense minister Yoav Gallant called a press conference on Tuesday in which he commented on the fighting in Gaza a month after the outbreak of the war. Yoav Sinwar is now hiding in a bunker. He is cut off from his surroundings. The chain of command is eroding, Gallant said. He also added, Gaza is the biggest terror base ever built. Marshall says, we live in bizarre world. Boy, you got that right.
Not bizarre, it's sick.
Yeah. Recently, the words humanitarian ceasefire have been heard. For me, a humanitarian ceasefire is first of all the hostages in Gaza. There will be no truce without return of the hostages. The pressure on us will increase. Difficult decisions will be required. For me, it's impossible to stop the fighting until the goals are reached. There is no going back. There is no stopping, only going forward. Thank goodness. Thank goodness they're not talking about negotiating or anything like that.
They may kill the hostages because they know they're going to lose the war. So, so it's another 200 hostages.
Yeah, and of those hostages, we have no idea. And that's the other thing. Where is the International Red Cross? I mean, they were right there, Johnny, on the spot to jump in and say, well, we want to see your detainees in Israel. We want to make sure that they're being treated okay when they have never had an issue with Israel and their detention of terrorists or suspected terrorists and stuff like that. But here we have over 200 hostages being held by a supposed legitimate government in Gaza, and it doesn't seem that the International Red Cross gives a damn.
Why does Israel allow the Red Cross to come in anyways? Why? Why they allowed?
Well,
when I was in Israel,
I mean, they're not going to let Magen David into Gaza. That we just know that.
But
and,
when I was in Israel at Rosh Hanikra, which is the entrance to the big gate into Lebanon, We went with the jeeps, 1 mile or 1 kilometer, and then there was the United Nations post, which was like a demilitarized zone. They didn't care about the jeeps going in. They just went check the borders, and they had nothing to do. They weren't even armed. So why set up a United Nations post? They don't care.
Well, the United Nations in Gaza is primarily made up of Hamas. And we see this all the time with the UN, these UN peacekeepers or observers and stuff like that. I mean, these people are coming from countries where they're basically no law, you know. I mean, these guys are making more money, you know, doing this with the UN than they ever would at home. And there are so many examples of atrocities being perpetrated by UN observers and supposed peacekeepers and stuff like that, because they just don't control who they're putting in there. You know, I mean, it's terrible. Like I said, you know, the UN has outlived its well, it never was useful, and it's completely outlived any legitimacy that it ever had. So,
you know, if you look at Lebanon, if you look at Iran, I was in Iran when the Shah was there. I was in Lebanon. Lebanon was called the Rose of the Middle East. Most people don't know how beautiful Lebanon was.
mm-hmm.
Most people don't know how beautiful Tehran was in Iran. I was there. I saw it with my own eyes. But these people knew exactly what it was. As soon as Khomeini got in, it was the end of it. They just, that's the way it is in Iran and Pakistan and.
Yeah, well, during the time that the Shah was in Iran, in control of Iran, that
yes.
I mean, Israelis went to Iran for vacation.
Yes.
Iranians came to Israel for vacation. They had a very good
and also
trade
the
relationship.
Israelis always protected the Christian population in Lebanon. The only one they didn't was Hezbollah, which was, you know, supported by Iran. But the Christians loved Israel because they were protected. Most people don't know. This is the thing we need to go in the history of Israel, the history of Lebanon and Iran. And if you look at the biggest country that created this mess is England with the partitioning, because and Saddam Hussein was a murderer, but he was not totally crazy when he said Kuwait was one of the provinces that belonged to him. He told the truth. But with the partitioning, you know, Qatar and Yemen, all these countries, they never existed. But England made sure that they did. The United Emirates,
that's like I said. You know, the Macedonians were pretty. Lee Rigby, thank you very much, Adrian. Lee Rigby. Let's not forget these people that were, you know, that have been massacred in the past by this Islamic Jihad and all the Muslim Brotherhood and all their tentacles around the world. Lee Rigby.
Listen, we have to go back 400 years. You know, we started with the Inquisition, with the Jews, and you know, and they killed a lot of Muslims.
Yeah, and we're going to on a future show, we're going to go into the history of the Inquisition and how
400 years it lasted.
How long the Inquisition actually lasted. A lot of people don't understand that the Inquisition was actually still fairly active going into almost into the 1700s.
And who was the head of it? The Catholic Church, the popes.
Yeah.
It was four or six popes that were involved with this Inquisition, you know. So, hey.
So
anti-Semitism goes back not just 400 years, goes back thousands of years.
Yeah, so you know, you're familiar with Montreal.
Yep.
Yeah, so Montreal synagogue firebombed.
When?
This happened, that would be today.
Today?
Yeah, synagogue and Jewish community center in Montreal, Canada, were firebombed early this morning.
Anybody hurt?
The attack occurred at Congregation Beth Tikva in Dalaran de Ormeau.
Yeah.
My
That's
French is
right in
terrible too.
Montreal.
A police spokesman, Sabrina Gauthier, stated that
There's a
during
big
the
Chabad,
night.
Orthodox.
Okay, so this happened during the night. An incendiary object was thrown through the front door of the synagogue. There is minor damage. The investigation is ongoing. They're saying that incidents of anti-Semitism around the world has jumped 600% since the Simchat Torah massacre. 600% worldwide.
Yep.
Telling you folks, get armed. Go to the range. Practice. It doesn't do any good if you don't practice.
That is true.
Yeah, and then we have also on Monday that elderly Jewish man in Los Angeles who was beaten and killed by that anti-Israel demonstrator who struck him on the head with the microphone. Marshall says 400% rise in the U.S. alone. So we can see Jews are being attacked around the world.
Look at the Ivy University, top university, especially for law school, Harvard Law School. And these guys are Nazis, these students, and they're going to graduate as lawyers, and some of them are going to end up in the government, in the House, and the Senate. What kind of generation are we raising? These people are sick. They've been indoctrinated. They love the action. They're just sick people. I don't understand.
Yeah.
Just don't.
So, anyway, okay. So I think we've pretty well covered everything that we set out to cover tonight. I know it's a lot of information that we're shooting at you right now, but again, the situation is very fluid. We're trying to keep you up, give you information to be able to fight back against the lies and the blood libels that are out there. Again, I want to thank Adrian Morgan for allowing us to use his articles this week and again next week. Don't forget that I'm going to turn you down here for a moment, Ancel.
Okay.
Okay. So don't forget that tomorrow night is the Torah study. If you're having enough with all the mishigash of the world and everything, remember what the Talmud says is that the study of Torah gives rest to the mind. Okay, so the Torah study, Hayasara, tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Eastern. And then on Friday night is Kabbalat and Ma'ariv Shabbat service at 8 p.m. Eastern. And Shabbat morning at 10 a.m. is Shachrit Musaf. Monday is Zeta's Story Corner. And then again, right back here for next week to the Rabbis Discuss for more discussion and the second part of, or the first part of Adrian Morgan's article dealing with the actual Muslim Brotherhood and their history and stuff. Again, I hope you're finding this interesting. And until next week, till next time, we'll just simply say, Laila Tov, be safe, and pray for Israel.